Before we commence, let's take a few moments to worship and put our hands together to worship the Supreme One, the discoverer, the revealer of the truth. The one whose compassion knows no bounds. The one who cares for one another regardless of creed, regardless of religion. Let's take a moment to worship the Supreme Buddha by chanting Namaskara 3 times, all together and with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. With permission from the Supreme One, the pure Dhamma and the Mahasangha, let's begin. How is everyone? Haven't been on the stage in around 1.5 months. And let me tell you, that 1.5 months was the best 1.5 months of my life. For one reason and one reason only. I was able to be right next to my teacher, overseeing every action. I was thinking, what is the most dangerous thing in this world? We as humans, we have intelligence, and therefore we believe we are, one of the greatest things that's ever happened to the earth. But really, nature is more dangerous, is it not? Because when we say nature, the first thing that comes to our mind is, the breeze, trees, a waterfall, the sea. But nature is one of the most dangerous things in this world, is it not? Small breezes can turn into hurricanes, tornadoes. Small waves can turn into tsunamis. The very stable earth that we, stand upon can tremble and crack and destroy. And let's not forget fire. Man made fire, right? No. Man never made fire. Fire was always there. And has the ability to heat as well as destroy. Nature will always take its path, whether we like it or not. And one of the most dangerous out of all of parts of nature is what? Vipaka. Vipaka is one of the most dangerous among them all. Because whether you like it or not, Vipaka will always take its path. Vipaka will always take its path whether you like it or not. Now, when I say whether you like it or not, it always sounds very negative. Whether I like it or not, it's always going to be a bad thing. No. Vipaka will always take. For example, being in the association of the Mahasangha requires what? A large abundance of merits. Agreed? So for 1.5 months, because I didn't have that merit, I was not in the association of who? The Mahasangha. However, due to another merit, I was in the association of a teacher. Do you see, when it comes to Vipaka will take its path whether you like it or not. Whether it's good or bad, it will take its path. So what I really want to do is to explain to you what I learned in that 1.5 months. And I think all of you will relate to this because, I'm just one of you, aren't I? A mind and a body fighting against ignorance. Now I want to start off with this concept that I thought of while I was in this, while being with my teacher. One concept that I thought of is armour. When a warrior goes to war, they put on armour. Why? Why does a warrior put on armour? To protect oneself. To protect oneself from, the swords, the arrows, the whatever weaponry there is. To protect oneself. However, every person that you meet, every person that you associate, you always put on armour. Especially when you're with your teachers. You put on armour. Armour in the sense that you put on these protective layers, making sure that, sometimes whatever the teacher says, you're not willing to accept. Trust me, it took me 4 weeks to understand this. 4 weeks, sometimes you can say 4 weeks wasted, but on the other hand, it took 4 weeks. It took me 4 weeks to understand this. Understand that when we meet another person, we put on armour. That when we associate a teacher, we put on armour. Armour in the sense that we try to protect ourselves. Therefore, we're not ready to listen. Like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. For example, lots of people ask me, what was it like being with Guru Handru? Staying with Guru Handru all the time. And let me tell you, it was amazing. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. However, for the first 4 weeks, I had what? Armour. And I thought, so whenever Guru Handru gave me advice, it always reflected off what? My armour. I mean, when I mean armour, I don't mean like a brick wall, no matter what he says will bounce off. But there was always a part that had to protect who? Me. When you're with a teacher, whenever you talk to a teacher, you always have something to protect me. For example, right? I don't know. I think for the first couple of weeks, I had this idea, it's Guru Handru. I'm with Guru Handru. I'm so lucky to be with Guru Handru. And I had this subconsciously, I had this idea that I had to what? Show, Guru Handru, who I am. In other words, to impress him. Because when we're with a teacher that we really adore, we have this feeling of what? I have to protect. I have to impress. I have to make sure that, he knows that I've changed. I'm not the same person I was before. So that was one of my first armours that I put on. However, that armour was one of the dangerous ones. Like I said, it took me 4 weeks. 4 weeks wasted. Out of the 1.5 months, 4 weeks was wasted. Why? Because I had armour on. It was only at one point when I realized, no matter what Guru Handru says, no matter what my teacher says, I have a barrier. Do you know what's really hard to hear? What's really hard to hear is something when someone blames you for something you haven't done. That's very hard to hear. For example, let's say your teacher comes and tells you, I know you're greedy. What's the first thing that you feel? Me? Moi? Greedy? No. I mean, I like it, but I'm not greedy. Me? No. Because we don't like to hear things that, that might tarnish your self-image. But think of an arahant. Someone goes up to an arahant and goes, Swaminathan, you're greedy. What would the arahant say? Okay. Sure. If you want that, okay. Because they have no one to protect. They don't have armor. They have no one to protect. Therefore, they are as open. So what? Okay. But when a teacher tells you something that you haven't done, and if you feel, me? No. That's because of the armor that you put on. I think in this 1.5 months, I learned how to associate a teacher. I learned that before associating a teacher, so I had the very great opportunity to, help Guru Handru in every sort of way. Because I wanted the merits, of course. But I also made a determination, may my armor disappear. May I be able to take off all this armor and be as vulnerable as possible. Because your teacher is a mirror. Your teacher is a mirror. Or you can say your teacher is like a light. Wait, no? Your teacher is a mirror. There you go. Your teacher is a mirror. Your teacher is a mirror can only reflect the amount of light that you give. The more light you give, the more the mirror can reflect. If you only give a small amount of light, and if the teacher wants to help you, it will have to focus all of its energy, all of its power on one single person, on a single person. That's why you have to look for this armor. And because of this armor, do we come with a disease that I like to call excuseitis, or the ability to give an excuse. Think about it. In your entire life, think about the number of excuses that you give. The excuses that you give are because of this armor that you put on. The armor gives rise to this disease that, when someone tells you something, you give an excuse. Why haven't you done this? I didn't do that because of this, and this, and this. According to your ability, or according to how strong your disease is, some of these excuses are foolproof. Sometimes your excuses can be foolproof, that, no matter what anyone says, they can't poke a finger at it because it's foolproof. But the worst part is sometimes you believe it's true. You believe your own excuse. Saying what? If you believe your own excuse, you're putting armor on in front of a teacher. You're not vulnerable. You're not giving the teacher what they need to mold you, to shape you. Instead, you're trying to protect yourself. So ladies and gentlemen, take off the armor. When you're with the teacher, take off the armor. When you're with a teacher, so who's a teacher? Your noble associations. The people on your left and right. The people who come onto this stage, they're your teacher. When you're with a teacher, take off the armor. Be as vulnerable as possible. The more vulnerable you are, the more the teacher is able to mold you. I'll give you an example, right? And this is what actually happened as well. So, Guru Andhru just told me, that's another, So, I remember once when we were having alms, I quickly finished my alms. Guru Andhru asked, why? Armor was put on, and so I said, because Guru Andhru, I wanted to finish it quickly. Why? Because, I just it was just Just a hassle. Eating was just a hassle. Then I realized, after I said that, I realized, there's armour here. I took it off. I said, Guranda, I don't know. I just felt like it, so I did it. And Guranda said, that's not true. There are two reasons why a person will consume food quickly. One reason is because it tastes good. Because it tastes good and you feel this pleasure, then when you eat quickly, more minds are with this pleasure sensation. So you're almost elongating this pleasure. That's one reason. Because why? You can't. Your mind doesn't like being under this vexation, so it wants to get rid of this vexation as soon as possible. Therefore, it's consuming to elongate this pleasure. Second reason is because it's bitter. To get rid of it ASAP. Those are the two reasons. He said that. What did I do? I put on armour. I said, are you sure, Guru Amar? Are you sure? Can there not be another reason? Then I realized again, armour was on, took it off. Am I? So he gave me a challenge. And he's also given all of you this challenge as well. When consuming a meal, how many times should you chew? How many times should you chew? Guru Amar in his Singha sermon explained to us that when you consume a meal, you should chew how many times? As many times as there's number of teeth in your mouth. Which is how many? 32. I don't know if you've ever tried that. But those of you who haven't tried, you have to try. Those of you who have tried it will know what I mean. How difficult it is. How incredibly difficult it is. I remember the first time he told me this, I couldn't go past 20. Why? Because over here there's what? There's this massive amount of what? Vexation. There's a massive amount of what? Vexation here. Only then did I realize that, I have some more to do, got lots more to do. Why? Because I took off my armour. So I also give you the challenge as well. When consuming a meal, try chewing 32 times. See how easy it is. See what your mind tells you. Enough, now swallow. And you'll come. Trust me, you'll come out. You'll tell me that I swallowed automatically. It automatically swallowed. It wasn't me. It was just automatic. No, because there's vexation here. There's an incredible amount of vexation in here. Therefore, we suffered. That's the thing. When you put an armor on, your teacher isn't able to mold you. Your teacher isn't able to help you. The moment you take your armor off, you're able to be molded by your teacher. The teacher is able to tell you something and you change. The more armor you put on, the harder the teacher has to work. See, how difficult is it to, sculpture stone? I don't know if you've ever tried. I remember seeing these. I remember seeing the Aukuna Buddha Pilima, right? The massive stone structure, and I remember thinking, I want to make something like that, right? When I was very small, so I took a hammer and a nail and a chisel, or not chisel, but a handmade chisel, right? And I remember trying to chisel away and trying to make something out of rock, and let me tell you, it's difficult. I hit it once, twice, hit my hand 2 times or 3 times, and I decided to stop. Because why? Carving stone is very difficult. Only the most skilled among us can do it. Carving or shaping diamonds is even more difficult. Because there's only specific tools you can use. But what about molding clay? Molding clay, if you were to press, it molds. It deforms. If you were to press, it deforms. This is the thing, I truly, truly got to understand how amazing a teacher is. Another thing a lot of people have asked me, and I understand why they ask me this. They're like, "Oh, that's another, what did Guru Han tell you? Hey, what sort of Dhamma knowledge did he give you?" And let me tell you this. I realized, because once I asked Guru Han, what are you thinking right now? What are you thinking right now? And at that moment, he was, I think, a devotee had offered him a juice. And he said, I am enjoying drinking this cup. Now, when I mean enjoying, I don't mean he's trying to get the extreme amount of pleasure possible from this. No, he's enjoying every moment. And I'll explain to you what I meant later. But he was enjoying every moment. I realized, Guru Han, even though his knowledge and his wisdom is above and beyond me, and I think all of us, he thinks very simply. No. When I asked him, he didn't talk about, the deep Dhamma concepts. No, he talked about it very simply. He said, Dasandra, this, I'm seeing the mind. And I'm experiencing the moment. The Paccuppanna moment. That's it. And I was actually, honestly, I was shocked. I was like, so Guru Han, that's what you do? That's what you're thinking right now? Like, yes. Because Guru Han, whatever he preaches, he practices. He only preaches what he practices. And I thought, this is my teacher. My teacher does it simply. Why do I need to go into very deep concepts? Should I be looking for other Dhamma knowledge, or just practicing what I understood? And I realized, just practice. Like I said, in that 1.5 months, I learned so much more. Not more Dhamma, but the practical applications. How can I put it into my own life? Now, that doesn't mean I got so much time. Guru Han, I think by the end of the 1.5 months had a very, very sore throat. I mean, if you heard his New Year's message, you would have heard his voice. Because every day, for hours and hours and hours, I think there was a time where he had to we had asked him to rest. We had asked him, we said, Guru Han, your voice is like, you can hear the how sore it is, right? It's like, Guru Han, you should rest. Mind Dhamma can do the sermon. But he said, no. I want to give the maximum I possibly can. I think we're very lucky to have such a teacher. A teacher that's willing to sacrifice absolutely everything for someone else. But one thing he did remind me is that, Dasandra, people, they majority of the people listen to sermons not to relieve themselves, or not to detach themselves from the lay life. Majority of people, they listen to sermons not to detach, but to almost soothe. I think it's better said in Sinhala. He says, Minisu Dhamane galavenna neme, nalavenna. not to detach, but almost to soothe themselves. Just to give a tick saying that, oh, I listened to a sermon. Not to actually practice. So he was saying, sometimes I don't understand why I still do this. Because at the monastery, we have all of you, all these people who are practicing very hard, who want to get this done. But there's always a one or two people in the audience who's going to listen to this and practice. That's why I do it, for that one or two people. Majority of the people will listen to the sermon, stand up, and go back home, go to their houses and enjoy their lives, forgetting or having what they have as a knowledge, but not practicing it. But there'll be one or two in this crowd that will listen and practice and detach themselves. I'm doing it for those people. So he decides to travel all across to a completely different country to save how many people? Just a handful. He sacrifices his voice to save how many? A handful of people. That is your teacher. Such an amazing person. A handful. And it really does remind us of who we should be. If that is our teacher, how should we act? One thing that he never stopped doing, right? So I'll continue to tell you what I've learned from him, right? Because there is lots. I think for hours I can tell you just what I've learned. Something I also learned from him is how consistent he is. He is always looking to find a moment to do something. So for example, Guru Handra, he's learning, as most of you may know, lots of languages. English, Hindi, Japanese, Telugu. And every single day, and I mean every single day, and I'll explain you why I'm saying every single day. Every single day, he'll be practicing it. Sometimes we come out of these programs and all these things, and sometimes it's very late at night. Once we had a program, and yet we had to talk to the monastery, and all this happened, and we had to go sleep at, give or take, 2:33 in the morning. And do you know what I hear? I hear Guru Handra practicing Telugu. At what time? 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning. Now, I know how tired he was. Because while in the car, I could see how tired he was. But yet, before he went to sleep, I could hear. I know it's Telugu because I could understand, right? So I realized, yes, this must be Telugu, right? And I realized, that even when it's very late at night, he is consistent. No wonder does he understand. No wonder can he speak so many languages, because he's consistent. He has consistency. Every night. Now, not just that. He's consistent whatever he does, he's very consistent. He does everything consistently. For example, after every sermon or every time he gets a break, what I see him doing is that I see him whenever, say for example, we've taken a meal or after a sermon or whatnot, I see him walking, pacing up and down. What's he doing? Contemplating. What's he doing? Practicing. I mean, he is an absolute inspiration, or he is a role model for us all. every moment he finds. Sometimes at least I used to have this, is that I used to think, I'm going to have a set time. At this time, am I going to start contemplating? At this time, am I going to start to go to the Valley Malu and do all this stuff? But Guru Hamdra, whenever he finds the time, he'll be doing it. He's living with that. Hence why this is why, he's our teacher. But I realize how even though he's our teacher, how of a normal person he is. Just like you and I. It made me understand, if Guru Hamdra is like this, if Guru Hamdra can do all of this, I can do a bit of this. I can do a bit. I can do at least a small amount of what Guru Hamdra did. Let me do it. Let me try. At least try. So I decided to do the same thing. To do something consistently. I decided to do something consistently. And it will reap me the rewards, just like it does for Guru Hamdra. Like I said, this 1.5 months, I was the most fortunate person to have ever lived. I believe. Being right next to my teacher. Being right next to one of the best teachers. Not one, the teacher, a teacher. Being able to associate to him very closely. I think, it is absolutely, looking back and remembering what I did in that 1.5 months, I think I realized that, there was so much that was said that he didn't have to say. But I learned. For example, one thing that, if you ask Mindfulness as well, he will tell you the same thing. Guru Hamdra, one of the things he taught us the most was how to live. Because, as disciples of the Buddha, how should you be? What should you be doing? He would correct as many mistakes as possible. Point out every fault as possible. Not just with how we think or whatnot, but especially in how we present ourselves, how we behave. Because that is who a teacher is. A teacher will find all the faults they possibly can to help you to become the best person possible. I mean, I was able to be associate Guru Hamdra so closely that I was able to improve on so many different levels, and I'm very, very happy that I did. Due to my merits, I got Guru Hamdra. Due to my lack of merits, I wasn't able to be in the Mahasangha association for 1.5 months. I think that's also something that Guru Hamdra had to remind us. Guru Hamdra reminded us, he told me that, the reason why you're not at the monastery right now is because at this moment you don't have the merits to be in the association of such great individuals. Right now, you have the opportunity to be amongst Guru Hamdra. That's okay. That's due to some merits, but mostly because of something you've done. Because of the debts you have. You had to, leave the association of the Mahasangha. I remember a certain individual came up to me and asked me, I want to come to the monastery. I want to stay at the monastery. I want to ask you, what is life like in the monastery? And the answer I gave was, sir, without a modicum of doubt, I can say that you, sir, you live in a hell. For me, the monastery is a heaven. A heaven where I'm among the greatest people possible. Bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, upasaka, upasaka, all of them. Not a single one of them wants my downfall. Every single person wants to help each other, uplift each other, to become the best person they possibly can. For them to become Arahantanavansis, Arahat-Mahinavansis. They're ready to sacrifice, they're ready to drop anything for another person. However, in the life that you live, you don't have that. In the life that you live, you're surrounded by so many people who are very self-centered. In every sense of the word. They are self-centered and will do everything to protect themselves, everything to gain from themselves. That's why, sir, the monastery is a heaven for me. And the place that you're living feels like hell. And so he asked me a very good question. He asked me then, if the monastery is such a heaven, why are you here? And I asked myself the same question. I'm here to help all these whole people to understand the Dhamma, to relieve themselves from suffering. Me and my teachers. Not for any other reason. In other words, the disciples of the Buddha go through hell to help another person. And also I had to remind him, well, I can tell you this. I have many words to say, I can tell you this, but the only way you can understand what I feel is if you come to the monastery. And all of you can, confirm that. Those of you who live and breathe in the monastery can confirm it. How this is more of a heaven than it is outside. I mean, when you start talking about the outside world, living amongst all of you, the way I see the world is very different. Because I am amongst so many great people, I have views that, that the world might be like this. You take a step outside, you realize how different the world is. If you want to start, I can start off with children. I had the great opportunity to talk to lots of young children, from, I don't know how old, from 2 to big for 30, 40, 50-year-olds as well, 50-year-old children. I had the great fortune to associate all these children, but, when looking at the younger generations, I feel that, how vulnerable they are. At a certain place, I gave some children a challenge. Literally, the challenge was to keep your hands on the table, to sit down and do nothing. That's it. And I kid you not, one child could only stay 15 seconds. The oldest child there was probably 14, 15, or maybe 16 years old. Could stay 5 minutes. I did it with our noble heartians. I did it with some of our LB. The majority of them stayed still until I said that's enough. Until I said that's enough. We stayed for around 15, 20 minutes and I said that's enough. 3 times, 4 times the amount of time, 4 times as much as the other kids. The younger generations, they aren't able to focus. Their minds are in the clouds. I mean, I was told that I think statistically 70% of all teachers are now getting more depressed because they're not able to teach. They're not able to teach the younger crowd because they are their minds are so different now. I mean, I had I think a half an hour lecture from a 5, 6, 7-year-old on what they call brain rot, things that rot the brain. Yeah, I got a half an hour lecture, from start to the end. And I understand why it's called brain rot. They aren't able to focus. They aren't able to handle. They have no patience. Have no patience whatsoever. Always trying to relieve themselves from the pressure. They can't sit still. Not only that. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you this, but I'll tell you this. If it's not allowed, I'll ask our IT team to sniff it out. I'll make sure I find out. A mother came up to Guru Handaru and had told him that one of her friends is a psychologist, a child psychologist. And this psychologist has a client, right, a child, in primary school. So that's grade 3, 4, 5, 6 range. And the psychologist has told this mother that, in a specific school, in the bathrooms, they have, how do you say this in a nice way? They have protection. Those of you know will know. They have protection in like there for them to use. What? What? And the mother was very scared. Like, if that's happening there, then why else? What else are we gonna do? What else is gonna happen? Again, year 5, year 6. These are young children. But remember, this is talking about minds. We're not talking about children here. We're talking about minds. Minds that have vexation. A mind with ignorance. The thing is, some parents don't see this. Some parents think that, if my son or daughter becomes an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, some sort of education, I'm happy, yay. They don't realize the amount of destruction that's actually happening. But then, the other thing was that, a lot of parents came and told me, well, that's okay. Because, someday in December, Australia was going to ban social media for under 16s. Funnily enough, after that day, every child I talked to said what? Just a ban. That's okay. Why? Just make another account, change the date, and you get, I have the account again. Because, what we fail to realize is, we're trying to fix problems at its top level. What we don't realize that, you're trying to get rid of the way they relieve their vexation without getting rid of vexation itself. We're getting ways to relieve children from, relieving themselves from vexation. We're stopping that, but keeping their vexation there. I want you to go back when you were a child. When mom and dad said no, what did you do? Okay, it's a no, so I'm not going to do anything. You found your own ways to do what you want. You found your own ways to get what you want done. Because if you have the vexation, you find the ways to relieve it. This is why children these days are so vulnerable. Children these days are so vulnerable. Some children, you talk to them and they know everything about everything. You ask them about Jupiter, they'll tell you everything about Jupiter. You ask them about any sort of topic, they know everything. Why? Because they're so close with technology, so close with information. And we think, we're so successful. At such a young age, they have so much information. Right, of course. Good and bad information is all good. There's sometimes, I look at a child and think about how I feel so compassionate towards a child, because I know this child growing up will be growing up in a world where, they won't know how to handle their vexations. Living in the monastery, I know the amount of vexations that, people have. And that's when we have the Dhamma. We have a way to get rid of this vexation. What about people who don't? That's why, a couple of days back, we had a massive ceremony where we opened 26 new YouTube channels. To spread this Dhamma far and wide. In so many different languages, in so many different styles. This is why, the Dhamma right now is needed more than ever. The Dhamma right now is needed more than ever. But like I said, lots of people listen to sermons not to detach or not to actually practice, but to soothe. But to be lullabied. This is, that's why we have lots of work to do. We have so much work to do. We have, to do as much as we possibly can to save ourselves as well as everyone around us. I remember, you remember the story of when, a traveler, if I remember correctly, goes up to the Buddha and just asks the Buddha, or monk, you look like a winner. And the Buddha thinks about it and says, yes, I am the winner of winners. And that person does what? Okay, and walks away. And just walks away. They come to the Buddha and they ask the Buddha a question. But Venerable Sir, you look like a winner. And the Buddha says, no, I'm the winner of winners. The person's like, okay, and just walks away. There are so many times where lots of people did that as well. So many times that people come and listen to Guru Handru and they understand, they learn, and they just walk away. When they've come so close but yet so far. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to a room of people who practice this. I'm talking to a room that people practice this. People practice this day in, day out. I'm not trying to, show you how horrible the world is. No, I want you to take this into your heart and practice not just for yourself, but for everyone. So you can help everyone relieve themselves from their own pressures. Relieve themselves from their own pressures. Lots of people, even though they understand the Dhamma, they can't let go. They can't let go. Even though they understand it, they're right next to it, they are in constant association, they can't let go because they have stronger desires here. Now, that's the negative side. I mean, there were positive things. There was a child. There was a child whose mother doesn't want him to come. which is understandable because mothers, they have very close associate. They love their children so much they can't let them go. I understand that. But this child, he was how old? 13, 14 years old. He was a hero. I remember one day at a certain place, I saw this child in a corner or sitting on a bench, and I decided to go and talk to him. And the child said, my mother doesn't want me to come. My parents are against me coming. What should I do? What should I do? How old? 13, 14? So who do I go to? When I have a problem, I go straight to Guru Hadhara. Guru Hadhara, there's this young child here who wants to come, but parents are not, doesn't want to come. Now, Guru Hadhara says, okay, let me speak to the father first. Speaks to the father. Speaks to the mother. Then the child speaks to the mother and father. And the mother who says, I can't let my child go, says what? Okay. Okay. Even though it pains every bone in my body, I am willing to let my child go. And so hopefully, if everything goes right, he'll be coming in the very close future. Not just that, not just one child. Guru Hadhara goes around and just hearing Guru Hadhara and all of you. Because the thing about Guru Hadhara always reminds us is that people don't come just because of Guru Hadhara. People don't come just because of Guru Hadhara. People come because of all of you. Meaning they look at you and they can feel the love. They can feel your love, the love that you give them, the compassion you give them. And they realize, no, this is home. They realize this is home. Not because of Guru Hadhara and his sermons is just almost the initiator. What makes people stay is no one but just yourselves. The love and the care that you give each other is what makes people stay. Not because of Guru Hadhara. That's why, Guru Hadhara wanted me to tell you all as well. He said, tell this to as many people as I possibly can. So I tell it to the people I talk to. It's because of you do people decide to come and stay and practice. It's because of you do people come, stay, practice and attain Nibbāna, because of you. So for every single person who comes to the monastery, who enters that gate, all the merits belong to who? To all of you. Bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, upasaka, upasaka, everyone. Like they say, it takes a village to bring up a child. It takes a village to bring up a child. This is the village. This is the village. To bring up a child, a young or an innocent mind, to bring them up in such a great environment. That's all you. So keep doing what you do. Keep doing what you do. I think at a point I thought, the only thing that we can do is help people outside the monastery get enough merits to come where? Inside. Because outside the monastery, if you think about it, very little number of people actually know how to do merits. It's very few and far between. I think I used to think that, doing merits is very easy. Ne? It's like very simple. All you have to do is you have to, give something to someone with a happy intention. But like I said, everyone, currently in our world, we are very self-centered. We're very money-centered. We're focused on different things. We don't focus ourselves on humanity. Actually, if you see it, the amount of humanity that we used to have has decreased substantially. People helping another person is now it's getting less and less. Therefore, the amount of merits people accumulate is reducing. So, I believe that, we have to help other people to understand Dhamma, to help them start doing merits. Why? To bring them here. To bring them to the monastery so they can practice their path to get this done, full stop. And then, only then did I realize, why does our monastery do what it does? If you think about it, currently, we have a Montessori. All the way up to what? Montessori, all the way up to what? Sita Shravakas, Shravikas. In taking any single person who decides to say what? Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, we take inside and we help. Any person that says, I want to attain Nibbāna, we take them inside and help. So when parents say, well, what am I going to do? My child needs to be educated. What does the monastery do? Well, we have a school. But, my child, right, going to school is not enough. What about, they have to have some sort of qualification. So what does our monastery do? Put a university. What happens if I get sick? Hospital. What other excuses can you have? But I won't be able to drive my car. I won't have such a big house. I mean, in the monastery, if you wanted to go somewhere, so like say for example, if one of our monks gets sick, we have someone, we have some of our anagarikas who drives us to places that we need to go. We don't drive cars, right? But transport is available. I mean, actually, what Guru Han has done? Guru Han has given you a no excuse. Why can't you come? No excuse. Because you have your attachments. That's why. That's why. He's given you a no excuse, full stop. Why can't you come? Because I have attachments. Okay. No other, because of this, because of that. No, because you have attachments. I mean, if you look at it, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We all come together aiming for a single thing, Nibbāna. And it's amazing. The amount of something that Guru said in on our Thursday sermon as well is how we all work together. So those of you who saw our opening of the YouTube channels, you will see how beautifully that event was done. Flawlessly, I would like to say. I mean, there are probably small errors here and there, but neglect those. But majority of it was flawless. Why? Because we all work together. Now, normally outside, people work for what? Money. People work for, not for the end goal, but for what they get from it. Recognition. But we all work for what? For one thing and one thing only, for Nibbāna. Who's Nibbāna? No, Nibbāna. That's why we as we come together, as we all come together, we're able to do so much. We're able to do so much. And that's why, I can only start to see how Guru Handru sees the world. Only just a small part. if he's our teacher, we should be like him. We should try to do the same things that he does, to become someone like him, to spread the Dhamma far and wide, to help all these innocent minds. So something that I wanted to share with all of you is what I said in the beginning, how nature takes its path. How nature will always take its path. Whether you like it or not, this is nature that's happening. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm sat down listening, Swaminathan. Right? What are you doing? The mind is feeling me. That's it. And it's absolutely crazy to think about this, because when you're focused and when you're aware, you see when you understand and you're aware, you see the world one way. The moment you are not aware, you see the world in something completely different way. And that is what we have to do. Keep being aware and put this into practice. So first of all, what we have to realize is that everything around us is made from the same basic form, or it's made from energy. What is the value of energy? What is the value of energy? Energy does not have value. However, the mind places value when it has ignorance. Now, like I said, this whole world is very money motivated. But the actual concept of money is very strange. Very strange. Those of you who've done economics will know this very well. How money is very strange. Think about it. Before we had money, what did we have? Before money was there, what did we have? We had a trading system where we used to trade. Right? You'll say, I'll give you this pen if you give me that pen, and you trade. Which means two people had to agree on how valuable something is, which makes sense. But then they thought, well, I won't always have something like this with me to trade. So I had to find a way to make my wealth portable. So does anyone know what they used to use as money, or as a way to keep wealth? They used to keep livestock. In other words, they used to have cows. Right? So, people would now take cows with them. And that's understandable. Why? Because cows are useful, aren't they? They can pull carts. They can give you milk. Right? And when they die, you can take their meat. Very useful, very useful. And so it was a very useful way of measuring how wealthy you are. So people will take, cows, and they'll trade cows for things. So say 1 cow and you give me, 5 bags of rice. That makes sense. It's useful. Right? And say if it'll do work for you. Right? If you're hungry, there's food there, milk. But then there was a problem. I want this pen. Can I trade a cow for a pen? Is that how much a pen is worth? A cow. There was an issue. What? Cows are whole things, right? You can't give half a cow. So what do? Or they can't give half a cow, and also cows can become sick. right? And they can pass away. If you pass away, you're losing, your wealth. So they thought, you know what? We have to find a way to define wealth in a different way. So what did they use? From cows? From something that's useful. They decided to move on to something else. Does anyone know? They went for gold. Why do people use gold? 2 reasons. One is because it's rare. The other is because it's shiny. For some reason, the mind of a human decides it likes shiny things. Right? Because everything else doesn't give the same sort of shine. Seeing a shiny thing relieves this pressure, this vexation to see something different. So shiny. Then people started to use, gold to measure wealth. So what did they have? They had gold in their pocket, and they would trade gold. The amount of weight of gold will mean amount of wealth. But is gold useful? Is it useful? No, but it looks nice. Okay, we can agree that gold looks nice. Therefore, collecting gold wouldn't be much of an issue. However, there was another issue. What's that? Gold is heavy. Gold is heavy. As well as it's rare. So, back in our history, we had several gold rushes where people will, sell everything to go to a mine and just dig for gold. Why? Because they wanted money, right? So to come out of this issue, they decided to do something. They decided to put this gold into a house and then get a piece of paper that says, you have 2 ounces of gold in the building. And they decided to call this building what? The bank. So the bank used to be what? 2 ounces of gold in the bank. So if you gave this piece of paper, you will get gold. And you can use that piece of paper and you can give that piece of paper to another person to receive it. Now they can make abundance of this, right? They can give more of these pieces of paper. Now we went from useful to something that looks nice. Pieces of paper looks nice? Looks nice? No. But then there are other issues. People started getting scared and people started to take all the gold out of the banks. And so they made a new concept, which we call cash. Still to this day, cash depends about how much money there is in the bank, or how much gold there is in the bank. And as well as, I remember when I was very young, I remember when people said, Sri Lanka is such a poor country. I remember going to my dad and telling him, well, Tata, why can't Sri Lanka print more money? If we were to print more money, then we will have more money. Because you come to this idea that this piece of paper is valuable. This piece of paper is what gives value. Is it? Cows are useful. Gold is so-called pretty. But when it comes to cash, it isn't either one of those. When you're hungry, you can't eat cash. But you see, the value that you give to something is entirely mind-made. Because we moved from cows to gold to paper to cash. And then we moved from that to virtually nothing. What's that? What's that? We went from something to nothing. What's that? Have you heard of cryptocurrency? What is cryptocurrency? Is there a something? It's not, no, it's nothing there, but you give that a big amount of value. Again, because value is something that's mind-made. You're able, because value is something that's mind-made. You make value, but yet, we went from something useful to something that's not even there. Because the mind is able to put value on anything. And the value that you place will be very, very unique to yourself. Unique to yourself meaning that mind will feel it. For example, for you, this pen will change. The value of this pen will change according to what? According to what you think. The value of the pen will change according to what you think. For example, a good marketer would be able to sell this for how much? If a good marketer could sell this for 5, 10. No, 5, 10, hold up. Wrong country. For 100, 200, 300, 500 rupees. Or $1, $2, $3. All they have to do is make sure that you feel that this is valuable. To make sure you feel that this is valuable. And that value is just made by a view. That value is given to you as a view. For example, when you were born, do you know the value of a pen? Do you know the value of a pen? No, it's a view that someone's given you. They say, it's a whiteboard pen. Whiteboard pens are normally, say, 200, 300 rupees. Maybe more. I don't know. Haven't shopped for a whiteboard pen ever. So yeah, I don't know. 200, 300, 400 maybe. But that's something that your mind creates. That value is something your mind creates. For example, how valuable is this saucer? How valuable is this saucer? The value of this saucer for each and every one of you will be different. If someone will say, well, I'll pay, 1,000 for this. Some people will say, what brand is it? And according to the brand, you'll pay differently. You go to Australia and you say, I'm selling a saucer. They'll be like, what's a saucer? Yeah, Australians, they don't have saucers. They call it small plates. It's a saucer, right? Some people ask for what the brand is. Some people ask for, what it is. What can I do with it? And depending on what your mind or what your knowledge tells you, the value that you feel will be different. Oh look, there's this golden line that goes round. Is it real gold? That will change the value. Now, that's about this object, right? That's about the object. But I can still change the value, can't I? I can change the value by explaining you its story. Can't I? This was the plate used in the 18th century by King Louis IV of France. Now how valuable is this? 1,000, 2,000? No. 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs? Now, if a young child, or let's do an auction, right? Let's say we're in an auction, and let's say this plate, a young child has gone and scribbled on this plate. Does the value of this plate increase or decrease? Does the value of the saucer increase or decrease? If a young child came and scribbled on this plate, or on this saucer, will the saucer's value increase or decrease? Decrease. However, depending on the person, will change. Say a famous individual comes inside and scribbles on it. Now what? The value increases not 1, 2-fold, but thousands-fold. People who have who are fans of a celebrity. Just a sign would be enough to sell this for millions. Why? Because value is something that's made in the mind. It's not in the plate. It's not in the source. It's not in anything. It's something the mind feels. Okay, you have the plate, and then you have a broken plate. Which one's more valuable? Which one's more valuable? Again, you can argue and say, well, the saucer is more useful when it's there than it's broken. However, for an artist, a broken saucer may be more valuable. Because again, it's something the mind creates. Now, the mind creates it due to what? The mind creates it because it's looking for something that is special. Your idea of value is always comparative. Your idea of value is something that's compared with your knowledge. So, if you had no idea of anything in this world and I show you this pen, and I asked you, how valuable is this whiteboard pen? If you had no knowledge of this whatsoever, what would you say? It has some value. Why? Because it's different from everything else that you see. Because you see a difference. Or, I want to say not see a difference, but you feel a difference. If I took some clay and modeled it into a tree, unfortunately my modeling skills isn't so good, so therefore I do not have clay with me. Right? I can ask one of our artists to do that for me some other time. If I modeled a tree here, and you give it a value, if I was to squish it back into a ball, the value of the tree and the value of the ball should be the same, should it not? However, don't you feel them to be different? Because you think, the tree took a lot of effort. The tree took a lot of time. The tree took a lot of thinking power. However, both of them are exactly the same. The reason why you think one is more valuable than the other is because the mind has an idea that there is something special in this world, and it comparatively compares. It compares with one another to say that this is more valuable, this is something that's good, this is something that's better. And it gives it a value, and therefore, if the more value you have of this, the stronger the attachment that you have. The thing is, this does not need to be your pen to make you suffer. This pen does not need to be your pen to make it suffer. Instead, it just needs to be special for you. Special meaning different for you. Different from the rest. If this is different, or if this is different from the rest of the environment, then and only then can this make you suffer. For example, when you see a good car broken, why does that make you feel that? It's what a waste. Why does it make you feel that? It's because that car, you automatically feel that it's special. Or it was special. Now it's ruined. Therefore, it's now more or less valuable. See, the value of all of this is something that the mind makes. The value is something that your mind makes. Nothing in this world actually has that value. The person your left and right doesn't have the same value as that you feel. Instead, they are the same as nature. Whatever value you give nature is the same as everything else. What is the value of light energy? You can give two answers. Either it's not valuable or it's priceless. If you give light energy both of these values, then let's say this pen, then if light energy is 0 or infinity, this pen, the value of this pen should be either what? 0 or infinity. Now this does not mean that when you go around and you take a pen and you say this doesn't worth anything, it's not worth anything, you don't pay anything for the shop. No, I mean, in society it was different. I want to show you the reality. I want to show you reality because the moment you see reality, it all changes. The perspective of the world that you see will change. And you no longer feel the need to grab onto things. Now, usefulness is different. Usefulness is different because it's something that you can use to get something done. For example, a pen you can use to do what? To write. Therefore, it has a purpose. But the ability to write and the ability to read, which one's more valuable? The ability to write and the ability to fill a stomach, which one's more valuable? Well, you'll say that, ability to fill the stomach is more valuable because when I'm hungry. Again, because as an observer, because I am there. Because why? I am special. Therefore, the ability to fill a stomach is more valuable. But is it? Is it? Think about this. Actually think about this. What in this world is actually valuable? What in this world actually has value? Actually has essence? Because if you think about the human body, what is the human body? What is your body? Your body is just the coming together of different elements to make compounds and whatnot, which we'll call chemical energy. And it has electrical energy. And it has kinetic energy. Your body is basically it's just a bunch of energy coming together. But yet you give that energy value. You give that energy so much value and you think, this is me. This is me. This is my body. So when something goes wrong to your body, like say you get a cut, you feel upset not just because of the cut, but that cut is me. Or that cut is mine. I don't like it. Because why? This is me. But actually the body is what? The body is just the coming together of different causes that give rise to a different effect. It's just a bunch of energy coming together. It is just a bunch of energy coming together at that moment. You know when you're cold, you shiver, right? When you're cold, you shiver. The next time you start shivering, try stopping yourself from shivering. The next time you shiver, try stopping yourself from shivering. Can you? Or the next time you sneeze, try stopping yourself from sneezing. Can you? Every part of your body is working to its own way. Every part of your body is working, every part of your body, is working by itself. You see the result and you think that you did it. For example, you walking. You will walk, right? You can all walk, right? Are you sure? Are you sure? Can you walk? Because if I asked you, what are you actually doing? Well, what are you doing? You're just thinking, I have to walk from A to B. But what is your body doing? Every single part is working independently. Your body doesn't know it's walking. That's the thing. The body doesn't know it's walking. All the muscle knows is I'm contracting. Or all a muscle fiber knows is I'm trying to move. Or a reaction is taking place. That's all the body actually knows. Something is happening. So when you're walking, actually what's happening is, if you can take it to whatever level you know, right? At least I'll take it to the level that, a muscle is contracting. Does that muscle know it's walking? Does that muscle know it's walking? No, it knows it's contracting. Does that nerve know it's walking? No, it's just sending a signal to that muscle. Walking is something that happens. Happens according to what? According to the message the brain sends. That's why you can control another person's body, can you not? If you were able to connect yourselves to the nerves of another individual, you can control them. I think there was an experiment done actually many years back, where they were able to connect, if I remember correctly, wires from one arm to another person's arm. They were able to connect wires from one arm to another person's arm. And every time the first participant moves its arm, what do you think happens to the participant B, the other person? Their arm automatically moves. And when they move their arm, this arm will move. But it's my arm. I should be able to control my arm. How can someone else do it? No, it's because each of your body, every part is working independently, individually. Because remember, every moment, causes are coming together to give rise to an effect. Not that walking is the effect. Walking is a collection of different processes. Walking is a collection of different processes. Your body can't walk. Your body can only do small reactions. Those of you who've learned biology will know how small, just walking, how many different processes have to be there for walking to happen. But yet you claim that I am walking. I'm the one who's walking. You're claiming something. The mind is claiming something that's happening. Sometimes when you're walking, you bump into someone or bump into something accidentally. You claim it and you say, I am clumsy. I am clumsy. But really, did you bump into something? Did you really bump into something? You see, your body is a collection of different causes. Different causes come together to give rise to an effect. But you claim the mind, because of ignorance and attachments, creates a feeling that claims that this is me. That is you. But really, This is just a collection of different causes, a collection of different energies that are coming together at a single moment to give rise to an effect at this moment. See, we look back and we say, well, I used to look like this. And we look in the future and we think, I may look like this. But the past and future, these are all just feelings that we have. I don't think we have enough time to go into the concept of time, but I really do want to. It is mind-blowing. How time is just a feeling, a concept, or just a feeling the mind has. Because where is this history stored? Where is this history stored? History isn't stored anywhere. The past isn't stored anywhere except the mind is able to store memories. Memories of your past. No, memories that arose at this moment are stored in the past, or stored somewhere that can be recalled. That's why you have past. That's why you put all these minds together and you create a new feeling and you call that what? The future. I mean, do you predict anything that you've never heard of to happen in the future? In the future, coupling's happening. In the future, coupling's happening. Do you ever think that? Coupling's happening? What's coupling? Because your mind doesn't predict something that doesn't that hasn't happened, or that you haven't heard of. Your mind can only predict what? You're using your experience and knowledge can use that to predict something happening in the future at that moment. But that's besides the point. I don't want to get into the topic of time. The topic of time is a masterpiece. If you ever have the opportunity, right, to listen to or to understand or take a moment to think about time, your world will start to crumble. When you realize there's no past, you realize future is the past, future, and present are just feelings that the mind has. Your entire way of thinking just crumbles. Because then you already realize there's only this moment. Only this moment, the mind arises. But again, no. Time for a different time. Time's for a different time. We'll do it some other time. But I want to come back to the point of value. Value is something that's mind-made. Value is something that the mind makes. See, ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to do is to try to see this. Something that Guru Handru always says. And I want to re-emphasize this. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who mourn. See yourself. Now, I will tell you this, but the actual doing it practically will feel very difficult. It will feel very difficult because of pride and ego. See, look at your mind and see its suffering, see its vexation, see its pressure. Literally, every moment, try to see how much vexation your mind is in. Put yourself to the lowest of lowest and take yourself and show yourself how much suffering or how much vexation your mind goes through. Because only then can the Dhamma actually be put in. See, think about this. Through your experience, when you are happy and in a very joyful mood, do you put the Dhamma into your life? Through your experience, you tell me. When you are very happy and joyful and something amazing has happened, do you put the Dhamma into your life? When do we put the Dhamma into our life? When something doesn't grow the way that we want. And so if something goes wrong, I say, it's just anicca ne. It's just anicca. It's just, everything is cause and effect. You find, whenever you find a problem, do you put it in? That's why mourn. That's why look at your vexations and mourn. This is who I am. Mourn, and let the Dhamma soothe it. Let the Dhamma soothe it. So when we talk about value is a vexation of the mind. The more something can relieve you from vexation, the more valuable it is. For example, chocolate. Somehow we always find our way coming back to chocolate. Ne? Every single sermon, chocolate somehow creeps in. Think about the value you give to chocolate. Now, value doesn't mean money, right? It's the feeling that you have. Value is a feeling, not money. You can't say, well, chocolate's around, 300, 200 or something, right? No, it's a feeling that you have. You see, the more something is able to relieve you from suffering or from vexation, the more value you give it. So technically, the more something vexes you, the more value you have. Think about it. What's more valuable? Your entrance or your scholarship exams or degree? The question is, which one made you suffer the most? Therefore, which one's more valuable? Which one do people talk about more? Therefore, which one's more valuable? So whenever you give something value, understand that this is a mind that's vexing. You have to, put yourself to the lowest of low and say, my mind is still vexing. Let me give it the medicine it needs. This is not to demotivate you in any sort of way. Don't say that, my mind is still like this. No, it's to put yourself down. Therefore, you realize that I have work to do. So I challenge all of you, try eating by chewing 32 times. I challenge you. If you can do it, you have gone far. When you're drinking, say, a tea or something that you really like, take it one small sip at a time. Not to slurp it all down at one go. Take it one small sip at a time. See the mind vex. See the mind feel the pressure. The more you see, the more you're able to moan, the more you're able to relieve yourself. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is why. This is a journey. It's not a one-off thing, this is a journey. A journey that we have to take one step at a time. Mistakes will happen. Mistakes will always happen. Actually, if you think about it, the more the mistakes, the better life is. Why? Because now you're able to see the vexations. Problems will occur, that's okay. You're able to see the vexations. Then you put the Dhamma into that and you try to practice. See, a problem is just a problem until when? Until Jati comes up and says, hey, it's not just any problem, it's my problem. Now it's an issue. But a problem's a problem. So ladies and gentlemen, practice. Every week I'll end off by telling you to practice. Because this can only be achieved if you practice. Because number one, your number one goal, your number one aim, right? The number one aim I want you to have in 2026. So again, before I forget, Happy New Year's. The one goal that I want you to have is that, that you will practice to the maximum you possibly can in this year. That you'll end the year much better than you started off. Like I said, the previous year was gone. It's gone. Don't look at what has happened. Look at what you can do. Let's do the maximum we possibly can this year. One moment at a time. Doing the maximum we possibly can. Right. Do we have any messages? No? But before we do conclude, I do want to say how in that 1.5 months, the one thing I realized is how very meritorious I was to be amongst all of you. You will say, well, I don't get to meet all of you, meet you ever. No, but your association somehow will be there. And, I do want to almost express my gratitude in a way that I want to say how very fortunate I am to be in association of the Mahasangha. So, yeah. I remember after I came back, something that a lot of people have asked me is, will you be going again? The one thing I say is, I hope not. I sincerely hope not. Because I want to be surrounded by what? Noble associations. Because I want what? I want the same thing that you all want. What's that? Nibbāna. So that's the thing. May my merits help me to be in the association of noble associations. And may it help me attain supreme bliss and Nibbāna. That's what you should be wishing to. So yeah, that's my 1.5 months in a nutshell. I was thinking, did I miss anything? Or is there more I can tell you that I can tell you? Because there's lots of stuff that we have to sweep under the carpet because of other reasons. But do you have any questions? I'm happy to answer a question if you have any. I'll take the silence as a no. Okay, let's take a few moments to transfer our merits and conclude today's sermon. So first and foremost, let's remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of Buddhist teachings. And with immense gratitude, let's transfer the merits to Bhikshu Bhikshunis, Upasakas, Upasakas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha and passed it down through generation of noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, to understand, to comprehend Dhamma. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including all chief prelates of all chapters, who have dedicated their lives to a noble path and committed themselves to betterment of all sentient beings. Let's not forget, among them will be the monks and nuns resident in local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side, through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to Guru Sanansi, as well as the monks resident at the monastery, as well as Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let's take a moment to transfer merits and express our gratitude to those who made great efforts to spread the teaching of the Buddha, be that by transliterating sermons, sharing them out with others, inviting others to join them. May the power of the merits If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from meritorious deeds. Fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment transfer merits to all the friends of the monastery who for sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes every one of you who contribute to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, medicines, as well as those who pass their know-how, extend their well wishes. May the power of the merits, if any have been born in the woeful planes, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from meritorious deeds. Fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, friends and acquaintances, employees, and to all those who have helped us, supported us, and assisted us in a shape or form. By the power of the merits, may they be healed of any physical or mental ailments, may they overcome any obstacles in their spiritual progress, may they abstain from meritorious deeds. Fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmins, spirits, demons, primarily Sakadevas, numerous gods and deities, who are committed to protect and fulfill Sambhadhisasana. Let's not forget among them will be our garden deities, who keep a watchful eye of us and keep us out of harm's way. May the power of the merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from unmeritorious deeds. Fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who have predeceased us, to all that have been friends and family to us in this even long journey to Sansara. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those lost life in the war be defender foe. Rejoice in the merits of God today. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all to all those who lost their life in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, and pandemics, reminding ourselves among them will be those who have been friends and family to us in this even long journey in Sansara. May by the power of the merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from meritorious deeds. Fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss in Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, let's all resolve, may the power and the blessing of all the merits acquired throughout the day. We've been witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of Island nuances, Arhat Mahin nuances in this blessed land. And finally, may the power of all the merits acquired throughout the day, may you and I and everyone who made this program a success become an Arita nuance and an Arhat Mahin nuance in this blessed land, in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings know which you be with you all. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midetva, Dvesha ginnen midetva, Moha ginnen midetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, Sukita taravidva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, Sukita taravidva, Mamada sielu loka, sielu satvayo, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, Sukita taravidva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin, Sukita taravidva. Raga kini niveva, Dvesha gini niveva, Moha gini niveva, Nivan sapa labeva, Nivan sapa labeva, Nivan sapa labeva. Tunrange, Suisyananta Mahaguna Bilim, Siloka Sil Satyoma, Nibbāna Paramasukhi, Sutaravitta.